Well, Charlie Kirk was 18 when he co founded the organization Turning Point USA, a student organization focused on spreading conservative ideas on college campuses. Well, we are joined now by Erol Morkoc, who helped launch its British branch, and it was that memorial service in Arizona. Welcome to Newsday.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Many people have commented on how this was part memorial, part political rally. Would you say this was a big political moment in America?
Uh, I mean, by default, anything to do with Charlie Kirk has a political test to it. But in this situation, it was a memorial by all the people who cared about him the most, and by the people whose lives he had touched the most. And those people happen to be political, but you know, to us, that's a friend, that's a father, that's a husband before all else. So I mean, political is by default in the nature of the territory, but oversimplifies that it was actually a memorial for a friend and somebody who a lot of people felt close to, even if they didn't know him well.
A lot of people who spoke to the people gathered there talked about honouring Charlie Kirk's legacy, trying to live up to the way that he conducted himself in politics. Could you just kind of encapsulate that for us? What would that mean if American politicians were to try to emulate his approach to politics?
Well, I think it would be a radical change from the current echo chamber that, admittedly, both parties seem to strive to live in. Charlie Kirk was the type of person who would go out there and say, "Debate me on this topic," and for 3 hours he would give his voice to the people who disagreed with him, and that's something that we rarely see. And he's somebody who admits when he was wrong and changed his mind on issues. Oftentimes, politicians on both sides are fearful of being seen as changing or adapting. Charlie was somebody who was supporting adapting and changing. So a lot of things that maybe people didn't realize about Charlie Kirk is that his mentality, his sort of spirit was that of debate, Socratic, discourse. And I think that that is lacking in the American system right now, and it's something that we could all benefit from.
Well, we heard President Trump say that law enforcement officials would go after people who had ugly messages. We've had the broadcasting regulator in the United States hint that TV stations that broadcast criticism of the administration could lose their licenses. Would you say that the death of Charlie Kirk, his killing, is being used by some to actually do away with some of the things he believed in?
I think there's been a knee-jerk reaction by a few people on the right in terms of response to this, whether that be Pam Bondi kind of trying to criminalize parts of free speech, or certain actions like the burning of the flag, even though they restructured the offense to be based on inciting violence, as if you burned a LGBTQ flag and then created a riot, sort of the same theory. Still, there's been a lot of times where it looks like the traditional conservative ethos is being abrogated. I think in the short term, how people react emotionally. But if you were there today at the memorial, everything that was being called on by Erica Kirk and the family and everybody was for peace. You saw Erica Kirk forgive the killer, and the idea that this doesn't have to be a perpetual um, uh, point of absolute pain when they have Christ on their side and how they see the world. So I think it's also an inspiring moment for a lot of people.
When Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, did say through tears that she forgave her killer, it was perhaps the most powerful moment of that 5 hour event.
Hmm.
And we heard Donald Trump say that Charlie Kirk did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for him. That's where I disagree with Charlie, said the president. I hate my opponents and I don't want what is best for them. What do you make of that? Because you said you were seeing an overreaction from some on the political right. And
Well,
people will hear those words of the president and think this is not an overreaction in the short term that will correct itself. It appears to be a trajectory.
Well, it certainly, speaks to the fact that there was a bullet meant for President Trump, two of them actually. And so, also, if you were there in the room, or if anybody who is actually watching this watched it, Donald Trump said that with quite a bit of tongue in cheek, and then joked that Charlie would be mad at him, but he should try to live up to Charlie's standards. But he, hates his enemies. I mean, keep in mind this is Trump kind of riffing there, so taking it literally would be out of the spirit of the context of the situation. But again, Donald Trump was attempted assassinated twice. Obviously, it has a personal connection to him, and he sees this as a lot of left wing violence. For example, when you have the situation with the two Democratic legislators who were killed, they were killed by somebody who they knew. I mean, regardless of the situation, like it's not quite a situation where you have unknown random acts like has happened with attacks on President Trump
Remember, somebody
or
broke
Charlie
into
Kirk.
the former Democratic Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home and hit her, attacked her husband with a hammer. We also saw the
Yeah,
Democratic
yeah,
governor
but
of
that again,
Pennsylvania, Josh
that
Shapiro. His house was firebombed when he and his
yes,
family were
his house was
sleeping.
firebombed by somebody who was a Palestinian rights activist because Josh Shapiro is a
But
Jewish man.
but the point
So
is that the political
that's
hang on. The
political
point is
violence. That's
political
not from us
violence is
though.
being perpetrated by people
But
on
but
both sides
political
of the
no,
political
but that's
aisle in
not
the
both
United
sides.
States.
A political attack on a Jewish man by a Palestinian right activist. I'm sorry, that's not an attack from the right. The two people who were I mean the situation with Nancy Pelosi's husband, again, that was a very interesting one-off. Nancy Pelosi's husband isn't a political actor. He just happens to be a
No, but
very
the person who
successful
broke into the
day
home was
trader.
presumably targeting the former speaker, not the spouse. So let's get to
It
the
didn't
point.
seem that way.
We were told at the time that he thought she was home, but isn't the point that this kind of speech, like you hear from Donald Trump, "I hate my opponents," whether it's tongue in cheek or not, he said it, will perpetuate the fears that many people have that political violence is becoming the norm in the United States. Do you think it
We
is that, and it's going to get worse?
We don't think that it's going to get worse. You saw that one of the great civil rights leaders of our generation was murdered in cold blood in 4K, and we came out and held vigils and prayed for the people who did this to them. So, the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party is vast, and there's a lot of different things. But when it comes to at least how people behave, we don't, bring guns to word fights. And I think that's the situation, regardless of what people hear and if it upsets them. Words are not violence. Silence is not violence. And that misconstrued situation is how we got to a situation where my friend Charlie Kirk was executed for wanting to have discourse and free debate on a college campus. And I think that's the overarching situation. And that's what we really need to look at. I mean, yes, people can say things, but regardless of what people say, which side is pulling out their guns and trying to kill the top people on the other side? And that's going to be President Trump, who was twice almost assassinated, and Charlie Kirk, the First Amendment civil rights leader who's been gunned down for it in U.S. history. I mean, these are serious people who are being targeted and people who would really be detrimental to our movement if they were killed, like Charlie has been. I mean, that could have been President Trump, and that probably speaks to why he's so, um, I would say, angry at the quote unquote American left for their treatment.
All right, thank you very much. That's Erol Morkoc there, who is the founder of Turning Point UK, the British branch of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA.